English Auditorium, and this will be our general open council meeting for Monday, April 26th. And we'll start off by Ms. Harrison. If you could introduce the lead items, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Delete item 6B, delegations. Ms. Carol Keane, President, Canadian Mental Health, Mid-Island Branch. Replace pages 51 and 52 to staff report 11C, LA 50, application to expand a licensed outdoor patio, 275 Skinner Street. Add item 11G-1, staff reports, administration of bylaw 7102. Delete item 11H, staff reports, unsightly premises at 5861 Cutter Place. Delete item 11I, staff reports, unsightly premises at 1870 East Wellington Road. And add item 19A, verbal report from Councillor Unger regarding Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Association.
Thank you. Are there any other additions?
Yes, Your Worship. If under 19, other business, if I could just please add the City of Nanaimo's smoking bylaw topic of discussion.
Good, thank you. Any further additions?
Your Worship,
Skip?
I have a late delegation by Ann Kerr to speak on the pesticide issue, so I'd request a motion for a 5-minute late delegation.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Your Worship, I have one other. I'd like to move item 20A forward to a delegation. The delegation has requested that due to some people traveling and things. So if I have a motion. Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Could we have the adoption of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The adoption of minutes?
I move that they be received as circulated.
Circulated. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Presentations. The first presentation we have is Mr. Ted Alnick, Manager of Community Relations, Vancouver Island. And I think actually, Mr. Alnick, you're here with some wonderful news for us and for the City of Nanaimo, so we're waiting with bated breath for you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, some excellent news. Your Worship and Council, thank you for inviting us here today. I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Rick Trong. He's BC Hydro's Key Account Manager, responsible for the City of Nanaimo. We are pleased and honored today to recognize the City of Nanaimo for their leadership in energy conservation and sustainability, and to present a check for $62,560 to the City for replacing the lighting at the Centennial Building, the Cliff McNabb and Frank Crane Arenas, and Bevan House. With this contribution from our PowerSmart program towards a capital cost for these new lights and lighting controls, the payback period is estimated at 2.5 years, 2.5 years. This project alone saves enough electricity to wash 188,228 loads of laundry. Which, if you have children, goes by pretty fast, I guess. In addition, the City will save approximately $8,000 a year in direct operating costs. Part of this funding came from the City's participation in a Community PowerSmart Challenge. Currently, there are over 224,000 members on Team PowerSmart across BC. Anyone can join in the challenge. Every person and every household counts. Every time someone turns off a light or a computer or unplugs an appliance or electric device, a little less water is needed to create electricity. We can all be a little easier on the environment. This check is just one PowerSmart initiative. Rick has been working with Bruce Joyner, the City's energy manager, on other energy-saving projects at the College Park Pump Station, the water treatment plant, the Aquatic Centre, and several fire stations, and for street lighting as well. I'd like to thank the municipality for being such a strong supporter of our PowerSmart programs. Congratulations. And I'd like to invite the Mayor up to present the check.
Mr. Alnick, while I'm coming up, is there another gentleman with you as well? That?
Oh, this is Bruce Joyner.
Okay, good. Sorry. Can't hit me. Well, on behalf of the city of Nanaimo, I can just say how thrilled we are to receive this award, this financial award from BC Hydro. I do want to acknowledge and thank, you have to scrunch in there too, acknowledge and thank BC Hydro for all of the cooperation and the many, many things they've offered us over the years. It's a great relationship, and to Ted Alnick, who works so hard and tirelessly for BC Hydro, thank you, sir. A job well done. And I'll...
I don't think this will fall into your wallet.
No. Hey, it doesn't bend at all, Ted. Is there a reason for that? So we'll leave this for staff. Suspicious of the group. Thank you.
They won't let us put that little generator in at the dam and that.
Yeah, you're right. I guess we've... it's huge. Isn't that amazing? You know, again, I think we've had a very, very long and very rewarding relationship with BC Hydro over the years, and they've been instrumental in coming forward with some wonderful programs, and we've taken advantage of as many as we have been able to, financially and otherwise. So again, a big thank you to BC Hydro. We're going now into the second presentation, Dr. Lauren Ahmed, and Dr. Ahmed, I believe, is here, yes, and Vancouver Island Health Authority, VHA, to provide a presentation regarding harm reduction in the city of Nanaimo. Welcome, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, I'd like to introduce my colleagues. Alison Cutler, who's sitting here, who is the Executive Director on the Executive of VHA for Population and Community Health, and Gord Cote, who is the Executive Director of NARCIF, the Nanaimo Association of Services to Family. Yes. Well, anyway, NARCIF, I know you know it, and I did have it written down, but I guess I forgot it. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I wanted to speak to you about some of the work that's being done in harm reduction in this area. And let's just see if I can get this. I just want to say very briefly that when people become addicted, there are probably a number of factors that influence the path they choose, including genetics, poverty, difficult experiences during childhood, developmental processes in adolescence, mental illness, and so it's a very rocky road. It's not just about making a bad choice. It's in many ways it's about medicating to reduce pain. This slide of HIV rates in Vancouver Island and British Columbia, and the next slide, which is hepatitis C, are kind of one of the most important components of why we think harm reduction is important. And if you can see the curves here and the colors, you'll notice that Central Island this is 6 years of data of the numbers of cases and the rates in the population for HIV, and you can see Central Island is actually relatively low. It's with the North Island, where South Island is actually one of the higher ones. All of British Columbia is the second highest, and all island rate is the middle. So we're sitting in a relatively better position than some of the other areas in terms of numbers of cases of HIV, which is an encouraging finding. Over the same time period, 2004 to 2009, the hepatitis C rates are a little bit different. They're substantially higher, as you'll notice, and that's particularly because the virus is it's a more effective, more vigorous virus, and it's able to be more infectious. But Central Island, again, in the orange, and you can see that the curve moves a bit, but we're all kind of roughly in the same ballpark. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about this when I come to the discussion of the research that was done on Central Island within the last several months. But these are the things that we want to try and get a handle on, manage, reduce as far as we possibly can in the communities in Central Island. Harm reduction has been well researched over the past number of years, 30 perhaps more years. It prevents illness and saves lives. It prevents infection from being transmitted to other people who would be perhaps less engaged in a high-risk lifestyle. And it brings, because it offers a connection, it can bring people who are very isolated or marginalized back into society and into ways of accessing other kinds of treatment as well as treatment for their addictions. Because it prevents illness, it reduces health costs, and it also gives space for the fact that people who are using drugs and who are exposed to this kind of risk may continue. It doesn't require abstinence. It certainly doesn't mitigate against abstinence, but it allows for continuation of the harmful or risky behaviors. We have a number of harm reduction responses embedded in the community. You'll recognize airbags and seat belts in motor vehicles and helmets for a number of activities like canoeing or cycling or rollerblading, and shoulder pads and knee pads also for some of those high contact sports. Bylaws such as we have in this city for smoke-free areas prevents the danger or the harms of cigarette smoke to people who may be exposed to secondhand smoke. And the final picture is of a nicotine patch, which again relieves the cravings of the addiction without exposing a person to many, many other harmful substances that are included in tobacco. All of these are examples of harm reduction that we deal with every day. With respect to drug use, the prevention of harms includes a variety of approaches. Needle exchange programs, which have been demonstrated to reduce the spread of HIV and hepatitis C and other bloodborne pathogens. Methadone, which has been around for a long time and which has been used very effectively for people who inject heroin. The numbers of those people is dropping, and I'll show you a slide that reflects that in a moment. And supervised consumption services like Insight in Vancouver, which has been very intensively researched, has been shown to prevent drug overdoses and prevent transmission of disease, but is still very controversial, as I'm sure you're all aware. One of the questions that's been asked is, does harm reduction promote drug use? That would be a worry. There is no research to indicate that it does. The research tends to indicate that people who are accessing harm reduction services are already engaged in the lifestyle. And as I mentioned before, it's very compatible with abstinence. People who work on harm reduction would very much want to see their clients, if they choose, move into abstinence. It does not, as far as we have been able to determine, encourage substance use. The people who make the policy around harm reduction for the province is the Harm Reduction Supplies Committee that sits at BC-CDC in Vancouver. It includes a number of public health representatives from each of the BC health authorities, the Ministry of Health, and from BC-CDC. And the committee makes recommendations based on the best available research and best practices that seem to be working in the absence of really compelling research. The current supplies that are provided include needles and syringes, lubricants, condoms, and push sticks, filters, and mouthpieces. And I'm just going to, if council will allow me, hand out the components for safer smoking supplies. Now I'm going to keep one here to demonstrate, and I'll just hand these out. Some people have already seen these.
Thank you.
I'll just ask you to pass them around. I've only got 3 I want to pass. All right, so very briefly, the components that are proposed for people who are smoking an illegal substance like crack is a mouthpiece, which is a flexible piece of rubber tubing, a filter, which people who are on the street will use a Brillo pad to try and filter the impurities that come from the rock of cocaine. Now, the mouthpiece fits onto the pipe, which we are not distributing at the moment. The filter fits into the pipe, and then the push stick is used to push the filter into place. The rock of cocaine goes behind that. It's lit. It takes light and vaporizes very, very quickly, and the person inhales it. Without this, or with Brillo, there can be a lot of fairly harsh impurities inhaled directly into the lungs, and there is a condition now being recognized called crack lung, which reflects the amount of damage being done. So very simple components, and they're all available in stores. I'll show you a picture of how easily this kind of material is available. I think the point is that that people who are on the street and using illicit drugs have a hard time getting organized enough to provide themselves with their own safe supplies. So these are good, viable alternatives. Okay, we just reported on a study that was done on Central Island looking at people who use injection drugs, and a great number of them, probably in the high 80%, were inhaling crack cocaine. And that's because crack cocaine is probably the most easily available drug right now. The Nanaimo group was about 65 people who were actively addicted and on the street, and there was a total of about 125 people, generally speaking, from Central Island. We found that about 5% were positive for HIV and compared to 72% positive for hepatitis C. And again, that speaks to the more highly infectious capacity of the hepatitis C virus. The interesting piece is that Victoria has a rate of between 12 and 15% for HIV. So we've noticed that there is a disparity between Nanaimo at 5% and Victoria at 12 to 15%. And it's a gap that we thought we might try to prevent from closing. We know that for the most part in communities of this size that the HIV rates will rise and settle out in around the 15 to 18%. We're hoping that with the kind of coordinated service that's possible in this area that we might be able to at least forestall some of those new cases of HIV. A lot of the people in the survey shared their supplies because they didn't have access to new clean supplies, and most of them used a number of different drugs, including heroin and cocaine and crack. I think I'll shorten down on the needle exchange piece, and we can, if you have questions, we can address those. VIHA's distributed model of harm reduction, you've heard of Mr. Waldner's policy around the distributed model. Announced last fall, will provide access to harm reduction supplies throughout VIHA facilities. The ones that are going to be targeted are being analyzed now, and the implementation should be taking place sometime over the next spring, summer of 2010, I would anticipate. So with respect to crack cocaine smoking itself, we know that this is a very marginalized group with often very little access to any kind of health services and a lot of habits that increase their risk for infectious disease. The trend that we're seeing right now is that there is a decreasing amount of injection drug use and an increasing amount of smoking of crack cocaine. And the sense is that that's probably because it's more available right now. This is a graph that shows when you're trying to study patterns of illicit drug use, it actually gets quite tricky because where do you get the illicit drugs? So this has been a survey of what has been confiscated through police operations and then analyzed through the drug analysis survey in Burnaby. And it shows that from 1997 to 2007, you'll notice that the crack cocaine curve, which is the kind of the gold curve on top, has really had a very high trajectory. So it's become more and more the drug most available for use. And I think you'll find in your own community that crack cocaine use is becoming more and more prevalent all the time. And we are really struggling because we have no gold standard treatment to deal with addiction to crack cocaine. And they're not an easy group of people to connect with. So the more we're able to offer useful tools like what I've showed you that can prevent transmission of disease, the more likely we are to break the pattern of transmission of disease and hopefully bring people into other kinds of treatment. This is a picture of the kinds of crack pipes that people will use, and you can see broken glass, stuff in fairly horrible condition, how easy it would be for a burn from the hot smoke or from hot metal, from a cut from the broken glass to open up and allow a bloodborne infection to be transmitted from one person to another. So we can do better than this. The harms, as I said, are blisters and sores and cuts on the lip from contact with a number of items. And then sores, just generally caused by crack smoking, may also allow entry into the body of viruses causing bloodborne infections. Lots of sharing going on. and it's a fairly high-risk lifestyle. Now, the interesting thing is that the containers that I've just passed around with the little push stick and the filter and the wire tubing are items that are easily available in any downtown of most communities. And you can see here that these are, just a chopstick kind of thing, easily available. And this is flexible rubber tubing, which can be cut off and will serve as a mouthpiece. So one of the more important pieces then is to be able to use these supplies to engage with users and try and establish a relationship, offer other services, and hopefully support their accessing treatment. I have to acknowledge the process that's been taking place in the city of Nanaimo. We have a number of initiatives that are happening over the last several months, like the Housing First strategy. The support of the community policing team has been outstanding. We have a crisis response team. There's the new assertive community treatment teams, the reopening of the Clearview Detox, and the one-year successful operation of Harris House Clinic, all of which are true milestones in the work towards providing a stronger social network for people who are less fortunate, and coordination of services, which I think really is a hallmark of the work that's happening here. It's through the collaboration and the partnership with a number of different agencies that this very strong platform has been built. And examples include the Balmoral Hotel, and I would particularly flag the Memorandum of Understanding between Nanaimo and VHA, that it recognizes that each organization has its own mandate, and yet we are accountable to one another in terms of flagging issues that may have an influence on one another. And Alison Cutler has been instrumental in constructing that MOU from VHA, and I know that we intend to abide by the spirit of that agreement. The last thing I want to comment on is the position of the Government of British Columbia with respect to safer smoking use. There's been a question about whether or not this is named in the criminal code, and a number of governments are interpreting crack pipes as devices that are used for the mitigation or prevention of disease, and therefore they are not instruments for illicit drug use as prohibited in the criminal code. So that interpretation has not been tested in the courts, but that is what operates now, and so it's appropriate to move forward using these devices at the moment. I think that's it. I think that's all. The one thing that would be important for, as an outcome for this meeting and this discussion would be some indication from the City of Nanaimo that they recognize that VHA intends to bring Central Island communities into this kind of harm reduction with the addition of the components that I've shown you into the safe use supplies that we are distributing and will continue to distribute. Thank you very much. And
okay, Dr. Thank you very much. We've got some questions, or at this point, a question. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Dr. Med, very much. You will recall that several years ago there was quite an uproar when these kinds of devices were being distributed in Nanaimo, and I think a great part of that was the lack of information that was given at the time. So I'm really grateful for the extra effort that VI is giving to alleviate some of those fears. I would like you, though, to elaborate a little bit more on the method of distribution, say 3 years ago, vis-a-vis what you're planning to do now.
3 years ago, what was happening was that there were some nurses that were distributing kits, safer smoking kits, without advising the hierarchy. And what they were doing was appropriate in terms of the interaction they were having with their clients. I'm quite convinced they were preventing illness, but the community consultation hadn't happened, and so we've backed up, and that process has been underway. What's happening now is that there will be, we can't yet say that the safer smoking supplies will be available in the VHA distributed system because the CEO requires that the city will acknowledge that that fits for them, that's something that's grounded in science, and we're willing to go forward. We do not expect to see drug use in the streets. We do not expect to see residents kind of slapped in the face by having to watch that kind of an exchange taking place, and that would include handing out any kind of harm reduction materials. We think that access to mobile services may be important, but we would always be very respectful of the fact that we don't want children, we don't want citizens walking by having to observe this. If we are able to insert these supplies into the safe supplies in a drawer concept in VHA facilities, the same respect for people would pertain, and there would be a very low-key exchange of whatever was necessary to exchange.
Thank you for that.
Dr. Med,
May I ask if, Gord, do you have anything to add to that? No? Okay.
Dr. Med, I might just ask, before, I think the distribution was done by vehicle, and I'm just, before with the 3 years ago, and I think that was also a concern to the city at that time, and I just wondered, it was my understanding that the distribution, if we can agree on it, would be done from a fixed base, but are you now saying that it'll be done by vehicles again?
No, I'm not saying that. Do you want to speak to the fixed base? Or either of you? Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, you can sit right there.
From our current fixed site in Nanaimo, and also our distributed sites within our VHA properties, which, as Dr. Med has pointed out, we're in process of identifying where we'll start, and we're going to start small. So we don't envision a mobile exchange at this point.
Okay, because I think the mobile one had some challenges that that are somewhat self-evident, and a fixed destination I think would be more palatable to the city, and perhaps something we can work through a little faster that way too.
Sure.
We have Councillor Beswick, Dr. Med now.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Dr. Med, for the presentation and information. If you could just go back 5 or 6 slides as it relates to the crack cocaine use and the chart of the tenure of data that you had. Could you just...
Say when.
The very
I think you
beginning?
already passed it.
No.
The crack cocaine use tenure of data. And I'm just wondering how it relates to the Central Island. Sorry, there you go. So it's a steep curve, obviously. And I'm just trying to determine the, so we're about 3,200 crack cocaine usage pattern. And so I just want to know how that relates to the Central Island, if you could.
You know what? It's difficult to get any kind of a sense of what's happening in illicit drugs, right? Because we've got no reportability. So this is for the province. This is for drugs seized in the province of British Columbia. I can't give you anything more specific to Vancouver Island than just there's an indication that crack. And I think we've all observed it on the ground that there has been a substantial increase in the numbers of people that are using crack cocaine.
No question about that. I was just wondering if you had any data that would be relative to, the greater regional district of the Nanaimo area or Central Vancouver Island, but thank you.
Yes, sorry. It's a kind of a blunt instrument, but that's the best we've got right now.
Thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Just a quick follow-up on the mayor, Richard. There also was a slide earlier on, you don't have to go back to it, but I think I got from you, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was quite a variety of HIV infections from one region of one area of Vancouver Island to another. I think the northern part was severely affected. Why would that be?
Probably the curves that you're wondering about are just the impact of small numbers. So I've got the numbers of cases that are actually occurring in Central Island underneath the orange line. So you can see the number of new cases in Central Island in 2008 was 13, and the number in 2009 was 8. Mm-hmm. And so if you were rash, you could say, wow, the HIV rates are really dropping in Nanaimo. But in fact, what's probably happening is that it's still possible to even go lower next year, but also to go higher to bounce right back. So it's just it'll bounce around a bit like that. North Island, you were asking about North Island rates?
I meant south, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, south. Yeah.
It explains what...
I think if you were looking at bigger populations, it would smooth up quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Dr. Med. How many addicts do you think will resist sharing crack pipes just because they are able to access them for free? Do you think that would be a problem, the sharing of crack pipes?
We know that that's certainly a problem now. I can tell you from experience of people in the Prince George program, which has been running now for a number of years, that even given the difficulty of accessing this group, people, and I mean it's not everybody by any means, but people are grateful for the opportunity and they do access clean pipes for themselves. But I don't mean to imply that it's universal by any stretch of the imagination.
No. So in all likelihood, it would probably be better to have more than one location for securing pipes.
I would sure like to see that. I think, yeah, that would make a big difference. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
No, my question was answered, Your Worship.
No further questions? Okay, and Councillor Hold'em.
Move receipt of the delegation.
Second motion.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll go back. Oh, sorry, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Councillor Hold'em.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that the city acknowledge and support in principle the harm reduction activities and programs undertaken by the Vancouver Island Health Authority.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Can I have that kit back, Bill, please?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Med.
Thank you very much.
Lorna, these are some questions that were sent to me from some of the neighborhood.
Okay. Wait. Yeah, are you ready? We're going to continue with the meeting here now. And the next thing is, are there any delegations under 6A, delegations pertaining to agenda items? But we've got one more presentation we're going to bring forward now. And yeah, and I don't seem to show it on mine, but in any event, we have a delegation now, and actually if we could ask Ms. June Ross if you would like to come forward. And sorry? Wasn't there a motion made to come in under presentations? Yes. Thank you very much. Back in order. Okay. But I don't have the... Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is June Ross. I live at number 5, 3400 Rock City Road in Nanaimo. I am a citizen and a proud citizen of this city, and I'm also an activist. One of the groups that I belong to is Vancouver Island Water Watch, and on the front I've put a picture of a 3D map that we've had done, our group has had done by Trevor Wicks. It's been on loan ever since it was completed, I think about January or February. So if the city is at all interested in displaying the map or getting the word out to schools, it is available for that. I just wanted you to see a picture of it. It's a great map. So I thank you for allowing us time on your agenda to speak with you about a problem we are having. Before we start into the problem, we think it is important for you to know who we are. I'm here to speak with you on behalf of the Vancouver Island Water Watch Coalition. Vancouver Island Water Watch was founded by a small group of concerned citizens in the mid-Vancouver Island area in 2005 due to a concerted effort to privatize community water systems on Vancouver Island by profit-seeking out-of-province and out-of-country corporations. The need to provide the public with accurate information regarding harm caused through privatization schemes targeting our public resources was great, and VIWWC was founded as a result. We're comprised of 9 coalitions, just for your information, that stretch to Main Island, Gabriel Island, down to Victoria, Cowichan Valley, up into Port Alberni and Comox Valley and Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere. Water is a human right and must not be sold as a commodity. Nor is water just for human consumption. It sustains all life, and we citizens must guard against those who would use profit as a means to control our environment and our communities. Ownership and control of water and wastewater must be kept within the public domain and protected by all of us in order to ensure continued sustainability of our community's environment and all life. Anything less and we will have failed the generations which follow us. Now you know a little bit about our group. I'll explain the problem. We're hosting a 2-day public forum in Nanaimo on May 29th and May 30th. We have superb speakers coming to this forum along with superb workshop presenters. Our speakers are Maud Barlow from the Council of Canadians, Rafe Mayer, Corky Evans, Arthur Caldecott. All of these individuals will be with us at Bevan Park on May 30th. As you no doubt know, Maud Barlow is known worldwide as a leader and an activist on the rights of human beings to water. I'm sure she will be most interested in our dilemma. On May 29th, we are conducting water tours from Bowen Park Complex. We have permission from the city to tour our water facilities in Nanaimo, and we wanted to do the second half of the tour up into our Nanaimo watershed. The buses we are hiring were hopefully to be manned by city employees. We are in the process of arranging this with staff. We would follow the direction of staff during this tour so as to keep the watershed safe. We are willing to pay the employees for their time because we believe they are the ones who truly know both the watershed and the in-town facilities. For those people in the audience who do not know, Island Timberlands owns our watershed. Thus the problem. Unless we are prepared to accept specific conditions, Island Timberlands has denied us access into our watershed. This is not acceptable to us. They have indicated that they want their own people to conduct the tour, and again, it's not acceptable. Our intent was to provide a non-partisan information tour for any citizen who wants to see where their drinking water comes from. It was not to provide a platform for Island Timberlands to promote itself as a good corporate citizen. One of our members from our coalition spoke with a staff member only to be told that staff is in support of Island Timberlands' position. We were astounded, to say the least. One of the questions that was asked of the staff member was, if Island Timberlands can refuse our group, many of whom will be citizens of this community, access to the watershed, can they also refuse the city access? The answer was to the effect, we have a cooperative agreement with Island Timberlands. That did not answer the question at all. If there is some kind of agreement in written form between the city and Island Timberlands, we request a copy of this agreement and would ask that you ensure we receive it. We would also ask Council to find out whether, legally, Island Timberlands could deny the city access to the watershed. Another question was asked, our city water pipes go through private land. Do we have a legal right-of-way that is shown on the land title of these lands? The response? I don't know, but that is a good question. This is an important issue, and we'd ask you for clarification. We believe Council needs to pursue these answers, and we encourage you to do so on behalf of the citizens of Nanaimo. There's one more question we'd like to ask of you. In January 2007, a water supply strategic plan was done for the city by Associated Engineering. Under 5.6 of this document, one of the recommendations was for the city to review scenarios for long-term tenure of the watershed. This recommendation included assuming ownership of a watershed. We'd like to know what has staff done about this recommendation. Has any report been done as was suggested within this point of the document? If a report has been done, we would request a copy of that as well. We understood from the city's web page and conversation with city staff that the watershed was cooperatively run by Island Timberlands and the city. If this is truly the case, we are requesting that you speak with Island Timberlands to seek agreement for our tour to go ahead. Our group is paying for this entire forum at no charge to any of the attendees, and it is our position that we are not willing to be used as a promotional opportunity for Island Timberlands. The success of these tours will in large part be based on our ability to provide unbiased factual information. We do not believe this is possible if Island Timberlands operates the tour and only provides the corporate line. This is not the intent of our tour. So I'm here to ask you, I guess, those questions that I've asked and to try to get some answers along the way. Our website is at the bottom. I can be contacted there with response. If you want a phone number, I'm more than willing to provide that as well. Okay, and we are here to ask that you please speak to Island Timberlands. This is our watershed.
Okay, before you go, we have some questions.
Okay.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Ms. Ross. The first one would be to staff, if I may, Your Worship. With regards to Ms. Ross's assertion that Associate Engineering did this strategic plan, and there was a recommendation that in the long term there would be some thought of assuming ownership of the watershed. Has anything ever been done about that? Are you considering it? What's the story on that?
Well, Your Worship, there would be a substantial cost involved, and that would be something that Council would have to deliberate and decide, certainly not staff. I think we have provided in the past information about what we thought that cost would be, and it's up to Council to consider that information and go from there.
Okay. And the other question I have, Your Worship, for Ms. Ross is, what makes you think that Island Timberlands would make this a promotional tour for themselves if they should?
We think that they will take us to the areas that they only want us to see. And that leaves us, I guess, with the taste of thou protesteth too loudly. A lot of the people that are involved in the Water Watch Coalition are city workers, and they can be trusted. They're the ones that work up there in the day.
Okay. And finally, Your Worship, what would make you think that something is untoward in the watershed at this point?
What would what?
What would make you think that something is wrong in the watershed that needs to be checked?
I guess with the reports of from workers that we know that they spend a lot of time cleaning out Jump Lake Reservoir and the dam from slides, particularly after a rain, which tells us that there's a huge amount of clear cutting going on up there and not a lot of attention being paid to riparian areas.
Thank you.
Mr. Ross, I might just ask a question. I think there's also, Councillor McNabb has one. Have you had recent discussions with Island Timberlands about access? And the reason, before you answer, is that we were at AVICC in Powell River about 3 weeks ago, and Island Timberlands representatives were there, and this very subject came up. And I was led to believe from Island Timberlands, and I'm certainly willing to listen to anyone else that has a different viewpoint, but Island Timberlands' position was that they had no objection. They simply wanted an employee to go along for liability reasons, and and the indication to me was that there was no requirement that they go only to the sites that they, Timberlands, suggested, but we're quite prepared to look at any site.
That's news.
That was about 3 weeks ago in Powell River, so I have...
That's not what our chairperson had fairly lengthy discussions. As a matter of fact, 2 of them with a young woman whose name escapes me there. And, pardon? Was it Mackenzie Lee? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the same lady I spoke to 3 weeks ago in Powell River.
Well, then they need to notify us that we have permission to go up there. I mean, we had 2 discussions and they denied it unless they could conduct the water tour.
Okay, well, that's the reason my question at the beginning was, have you had recent conversations with Island Timberlands? Because they brought it up to me that this issue was forthcoming, and they wanted me to understand that they were prepared to allow the tours through as long as they had an employee there, and it didn't sound to me like they wanted to...
We were more than prepared to have employees on board because they're the ones that know it.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of questions here. Councillor McNabb.
Well, Mr. Ross, I've been the chairman of the water board for 20 years.
Yep.
And it's been working great with them. They're great partners. But a few years ago, we had motorbikes coming in from Lake Cowichan area, coming in the back way and causing nothing but trouble there in our watershed. We get our water checks about 4,000 times a year at different locations.
Oh, I realize that. I've got all the documents
if
here.
I had my way, I would keep it a secret, but wouldn't even tell anybody where a watershed is because, people going up there cause a lot of trouble. And they have in the past, believe me.
I think the logging has caused a lot of trouble too, Larry. I'm sorry, but I think that just unsustainable.
If you go up there and look, and you can see it, it shows you how far away the logging is from a watershed.
It's clear cut. It's clear cut just about the whole way through.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got some more questions. Mr. Kenny, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say on behalf of staff that we believe we have a very, very good relationship with Island Timberlands. They're very cooperative. Any measures that we ask them to work on and work with, they're always very constructive, and we believe they do a very good job. I also want to say that the delegation, Ms. Ross, while I appreciate and understand her comments, she does not speak for staff, and I want to make that clear.
Okay. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I note in your statement, Ms. Ross, that you do say you would follow the direction of staff during the tour so as to keep the watershed safe. So were you expecting that staff would conduct the tour, or do you have someone else?
We meant the employees that we would have on the bus. They would be the ones who would guide us on our trip up there.
So you're assuming that those who might be driving the bus would be knowledgeable about the watershed?
No, but there will be people on board the buses that will be.
Okay, and so are you expecting them to conduct the tour then?
The people on board the bus, yes.
The staff, the city staff on board the bus?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was after.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Ross. Have you sought out the opportunity to go on a pre-tour tour with Island?
No.
And the city staff so that you could identify the locations and the route and the opportunities so that all three parties at the same time would be privy to the same information as to what your intentions would be for May 29-30?
It's just a tour of the watershed to let people see where our water is gathered.
I clearly understand that. I clearly understand that. You indicated that there was resistance.
There would be.
You indicated that there was resistance.
Yes.
From this tour taking place unless it was conducted by
Island Timberlands.
Right. So have you sought out the opportunity with yourself or your representative, city staff representative, and a member from Island to go on a pre-May 29th tour to make all parties happy, per se?
No. If you suggest that, then, and I mean, that's, again, Mayor Rattan has said that Island Timberlands has indicated that their permission could be given. Well, that's not what we received. So that's something that could be done, Bill. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, seconder. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Ross. The next individuals, it's a late delegation as well, brought forward by Councillor Kipp. Ann Kerr, if Ann Kerr is here, that...
Okay.
Your Worship. Your Worship, I'm sorry. Should Ann come on as a late delegation after the delegations of attendance, or we'll let her go on?
Yeah, but on this particular subject on pesticides, sorry?
She's on board.
Okay. So, the late delegation, so it will be 5 minutes if we can.
Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Rutten, and councillors. My name is Ann Kerr. I live at 1369 Roseanne Drive in Nanaimo. I am a member of the City of Nanaimo's Advisory Committee on the Environment and will be one of the co-chairs of that committee, but I am speaking tonight as a private citizen. And I would like to speak just briefly on the subject of the proposed bylaw 7102 to regulate the use of pesticides in the City of Nanaimo. First, I'd like to commend Council on approving the first 3 readings of the bylaw. The Ipsos Reid environmental survey showed that a strong majority of Nanaimo residents support a cosmetic pesticide bylaw. And it's obvious that Council has been listening, and I really appreciate that. It seems that some people are confused about what is a cosmetic pesticide. To me, the text of the bylaw is really quite clear that cosmetic pesticides are pesticides used to control weeds and insects for purely aesthetic, non-essential purposes. City staff from the Parks Department have shown great leadership, I think, in using alternatives to pesticides in the parks. And city staff have made a really good start in providing information on alternatives to pesticides on the website that's called Go Natural, Go Pesticide Free for Healthy Lawns and Gardens. I believe that education is going to be one of the keys to implementing this bylaw, to have effective implementation. And the RDN in its Team Water Smart brochure on alternative pesticides, this one here, has already begun that process. I urge Council to adopt this bylaw this evening so we can move forward on the education part of the program and part of the bylaw and get all Nanaimo residents to support this bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no questions. Can I get a motion?
Appreciated the delegation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go now into proclamations, and Ms. Harrison, I can read it if you wish, but if you're in good vocal tone, please go ahead.
I'd be happy to read them. That May 28, 2010 is National Day of Mourning for workers killed and injured on the job in the City of Nanaimo. That May 2nd, 2010 is Walk for Kids Help Phone Day in the City of Nanaimo. That May 2nd to May 8th, 2010 is Emergency Preparedness Week in the City of Nanaimo. That May 3rd to May 7th, 2010 is North American Occupational Safety and Health Week in the City of Nanaimo. That May 3rd to May 9th, 2010 is Mental Health Week in the City of Nanaimo. That May 3rd to May 9th, 2010 is Elizabeth Fry Week in the City of Nanaimo. That June 13th is Rick Hansen Day, Wheels in Motion, in the City of Nanaimo. That June 14th to June 21st, 2010 is Quilt Week in the City of Nanaimo.
Thank you very much. We'll just go back and just for the benefit of those watching at home and those in the audience tonight, under item 19A, verbal report from Councillor Unger. Councillor Unger has now joined us, and so he will be giving us an update later in the agenda on that one. We're going to go now into Development Services, DP 635 at 1835 Stewart Avenue. Staff recommendation that Council issue development permit number DP 635 at 1840 Stewart Avenue with the following variants. Watercourse setback, Newcastle Channel. The required leave strip setback to the sea in Newcastle Channel is 15 meters or 49.2 feet from the natural boundary. The proposed leave strip setback is 0 meters, a proposed variance of 15 meters or 49.2 feet.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, I see no discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. DVP 152 at 1066 Palomino Place. It's requested that Council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 152. Is there anyone in attendance that wants to speak to matters related to that address? 1066 Palomino Place. Staff recommendations that Council issue development variance permit number DVP 152 for that location, 1066 Palomino Place.
Move the staff recommendation.
And moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. LA 50 application to expand a licensed outdoor patio at 275 Skinner Street. Staff recommendation that Council 1 withhold comment to the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch, the LCLB at this time, and 2, direct staff to bring this application back for Council's consideration once building code concerns outlined in the report have been resolved.
Move recommendation 1 and 2.
Moved 1 and 2. Is there a seconder?
Second motion.
Okay. Discussion. Councillor Kipp.
Oh yeah, Your Worship. Thank you very much. I just wonder on this. We've had some complaints about the garbage from some of these businesses. Is that part of the good neighbor agreement that we have with some of our pubs that they work on that? Can I go to staff on that one?
Your Worship, I'm not aware of it being part of the Good Neighbor Agreement, but we'll certainly follow up and bring back some information on that when the liquor license returns, if that's Council's desire.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Into RA 199-240 Nickel Street. Staff recommendation that Council abandon zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2009 number 4000.459.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second motion. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Before we vote, Councillor,
well, I was just going to say,
issue?
Your Worship, yes, that maybe it would be prudent for staff to explain why it's being abandoned for those people watching at home.
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. This is a request from the applicant who wishes to proceed with other projects in the city and not proceed with this one.
Okay, Councillor Kipp. And then Councillor.
Yeah, Your Worship, through the staff, what type of money does it cost staff to involve themselves in this, and there's no return on the investment, is there, when we go through a process? I know there's always money put out for bylaw or enforcement or those things.
Bishop, there is a fee for rezoning. However, the fee generally does not come near the cost that staff, in terms of time that staff would spend on it. Do you have anything you want to add, Mr. Swaby?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Well, maybe just touching what Councillor Kipp referred to, I mean, is there or should there be, in staff's opinion, some kind of a penalty fee if we have to go through all this effort for nothing?
Your Worship, I think collecting would be a significant challenge. They might just not tell us that they weren't proceeding. They'd just leave us dangling forever. So we could certainly do a review and provide comment back.
It just seems that there's an awful lot of taxpayers' money going down the drain in a situation like this. Councillor Sherry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think for the benefit of the general public, it might be prudent if we identified the property that we were talking about. Saying 240 Nickel Street doesn't indicate what piece of property when we know that there's a business currently operating on that business, which would bring in tune to the general public exactly what location we're talking about.
Your Worship, this is a larger property between Milton and Farquhar on Nickel Street, as was identified, which is currently operated as the MGM restaurant. And the proposal was to rezone and create a 43-unit, 4-story apartment building on the property.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The appointment of a bylaw enforcement officer, staff recommendation of council by resolution appoint Cheryl D. Senecha, I apologize if I'm wrong, as the bylaw enforcement officer to enforce the provisions of the City of Nanaimo Licensing and Control of Animals Bylaw 1995, number 4923. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving into official community plan general amendments. Staff recommendation the council receive the report pertaining to the official community plan bylaw amendment bylaw 2010 number 6500.011, which appears under the bylaw section of this agenda.
Move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Administration of bylaw number 7102. Staff recommendation that Council 1 consider adopting pesticide use bylaw 2010 number 7102 with no amendments, which appears under the bylaw section of the agenda, and 2 monitor. Sorry? What's the problem over here? Anyway, I'm going to carry on regardless. And 2, monitor pesticide use bylaw 2010 number 7102 for 6 months and report back to council on potential amendments, including a permit system to evaluate the use of the non-cosmetic pesticides. That's on page 4 at the top.
Move recommendations 1 and 2.
Okay, 1 and 2. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Councillor Oldham, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'm moving it with the understanding that we're referring to the bylaw printed on page 85 and following in the agenda, and that that's the version that would allow no exceptions for cosmetic use by anyone. Thank you.
Staff concurs. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion, Councillor Sherry?
Mr. Chairman, I still have problem with the matter of authorization of somebody coming and looking at the properties, identifying that there is a need to do it, and you're not having any exemptions, so these individuals, with all their knowledge, as far as I'm concerned, the community might not utilize this knowledge.
Okay, I just wondered, is there a comment from staff on that position?
Your Worship.
Your Worship, as staff outlined in the report, we'll certainly be cognizant of this issue as we work through the implementation period, which is a year-long period, and we'll report back to Council if this motion passes within 6 months to let you know how it's going and whether there's any hiccups in how we would have to interpret what is cosmetic and what is not cosmetic.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and as identified with staff, partly at our last meeting when we brought this matter up, and that if we're going to rely on our current staff, and if the workloads increases and then the additional costing to the community through this further workload, and my position on taxes.
Any further staff comment?
Your Worship, just to add that I think there is a very real possibility that there will be some significant costs of enforcement. However, our staff believe that it's prudent to monitor it for 6 months, but we wanted to alert you to the fact that in due course, once we've had some experience, one of the options may be, depending on the amount of work involved, to recommend additional staff to provide the resources to do that. We're not at the point of making that recommendation yet, but I do think it's important that Council understand that that is a possibility.
Okay, I have Councillor Hold'em, Councillor Patchy. Councillor Hold'em first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just point out that the bylaw says, or certainly does not prohibit householders or businesses or agencies or anyone contacting a certified pesticide applicator to help determine whether the issue that they want to deal with is essential or cosmetic. All the bylaw does is to say that we wish to ban cosmetic use of pesticides. So if a householder wanted to determine whether they have a problem that is actually essential and must be dealt with, even with pesticides, they can contact a commercial pesticide applicator to help them determine what the case is. Nothing in there is prohibiting that. The pesticide applicator, I would expect, would say, no, your problem's cosmetic and I'm not going to apply it. Nobody can apply it. Or the pesticide applicator may say, well, you have a serious problem of, say, ants or something in your house, and you must deal with this or the house will fall down. And so, you know, I don't think that these worries about extra staff time are really that warranted yet, but the staff has asked for a 6-month period to determine that.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship.
I just want to say for the record that in the document that we got this morning, the administration of bylaw number 7102, one of the problems that staff seems to have is that the bylaw, as it is proposed currently, does not define either cosmetic or non-essential. And as I alluded to this morning, there are 29 municipalities within the province of British Columbia who have a ban on the cosmetic use of pesticides. Some of them handle it by way of a permit situation, but I believe there's 12 of those, and that leaves 17 who somehow have found a way to define cosmetic use and non-essential. So I'm really failing to see why we seem to have so much trouble coming up with a definition. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Thank you, Your Worship. Back to one of my favorite subjects about pesticides. It seems we can spray us sometimes about these pest issues. We're encouraging education here. That's one of the biggest things we can do. And many of the chemicals that are now banned were once used and used widely. And it's about non-essential use, because I believe in Nanaimo, every piece of property here is waterfront property. You have a storm drain in front of your house off that lawn with a beautiful green, all those chemicals running off of it, and it all ends up in our watersheds that we've talked about tonight. And it's just crazy for me that we have this concern about a non-essential use of a cosmetic use, something to make a beautiful flower look prettier. And I think this also goes to our mentality of technology is going to heal everything. I can go out and squirt my yard, 10 seconds later I'm free to go do whatever I want. They're spraying in Vancouver right now for gypsy moth. And that is not cosmetic. They're using a pesticide. They're spraying it across the air. So it's not going to eliminate things that will affect our health or our infrastructure. It's just going to take away that quick fix mentality that we have and make people use a more harmonious, natural method of dealing with their lawns, which creates a far healthier environment. And I know that 80% of the population in Iowa, when taken on a huge Ipso-Reid poll, bigger poll than I think our city's ever conducted on its own methods, and they said 80% appreciate the fact that we're doing this and getting rid of cosmetic pesticides is important. So I support this motion, and I would support the 6-month review once the bylaw comes into place. I'm not certain we couldn't find, $200,000 here or there in our budget if we had to get extra staff. We could find it if we needed to. We could cut maybe downtown funding or something. But another half, yeah. No, okay. But so my point is, I think this is important. This is leadership. So what if other corporations don't do it? If we do it, we're ahead of the pack. And I think that's the way I like to live life, being on the leading edge of new things. So I appreciate your support.
Well, I think we all agree that you are living life on the edge. So Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. This bylaw will not come into effect until April of 2011, and during that time we'll have a very extensive educational program. And it was good to read the staff's report, and thank you for that all-inclusive report. And I was pleased to hear that, or read that, there were very few infractions in communities that have imposed these bylaws. So I can't see it being a problem, but I'm very anxious to have it reviewed in 6 months' time after the bylaw is put into place, and have a look at it at that time. So I'll be voting in favor of this tonight.
Okay, I see no further questions, so now we call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? I see Councillor Unger, Councillor Sherry opposed, balance of council in favor. The motion passes. Item H has been pulled, I has been pulled, and J, unsightly premises, 147 Halliburton Street. It is requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unsightly premises at 147 Halliburton Street. Is there anyone in attendance representing that property, 147 Halliburton Street?
Move the staff recommendation.
Second and more.
Moved and second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item K, unsightly premises, 2192 Tulsa Road. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unsightly premises, 2192 Tulsa Road. Is anyone in attendance that wishes to speak to that property?
Move the staff recommendation.
Second and more.
Moved and second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Unsafe structure at 241 Irwin Street. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unsafe structure at 241 Irwin Street. Anyone in attendance that wants to speak to matters related to 241 Irwin Street?
Move the staff recommendation. Second.
Moved and second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title, section 5.7. It's requested that council or anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies or illegal suites for the properties listed below. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to matters related to number 10 or 10 Turco Crescent? Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 300 Woodhaven Drive? And the final one, is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 379 Black Diamond Drive?
Move the prepared resolution as it relates to the three properties.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Corporate services. Regional District of Nanaimo not-for-profit rental housing sewer development cost charge reduction bylaw number 1577 2010. Staff recommendation: the council waive the consent requirements under section 801.4 of the Local Government Act by consenting to the adoption of Regional District of Nanaimo not-for-profit rental housing sewer development cost charges reduction bylaw number 1577 for 2010, and that the Regional District of Nanaimo be notified accordingly.
Staff recommendation.
And moved, and you're seconding it? Okay, and Councillor Hold'em.
Yes, Your Worship. Until we receive a clearer statement of the purpose of this waiving of requirements for the DCCs and a clearer connection of not-for-profit rental housing as a means of addressing the need for affordable housing, I can't support it. As I understand it, the bylaw would apply throughout Nanaimo as well as the entire regional district. And although some very good projects have come forward, and we have sometimes provided a 50% reduction, and in one or two cases, I believe, 100% reduction when it was clear that those developments were for or were to serve affordable housing needs. Even though those things have happened, I still don't think we should pass this as a blanket waiving of this need for the this charge for DCCs.
Does staff rather have any comments on this issue at all? That
Not really, Your Worship. This is an appropriate policy decision. Just to note, however, that I concur with Councillor Holdham's point of view that the city policy for waiving DCCs is not as generous as this and has more specific criteria. But it's absolutely up to Council as to what you feel is appropriate.
That's a concern to me too. Okay. Councillor Sherry, did you have something?
Mr. Chairman, if the council and staff have concerns as it relates to the broad brush latitude that's being requested here, maybe it would be appropriate to refer it back to the regional board for a definition and explanation. And if that's what council wants to do, I'm more than willing to refer it back to regional board for a better explanation. I second the referral.
Okay. So the question on the referral, all those in favor of referral? Opposed? Good. The referral passes. We'll just move on now into information items.
Move receipt.
I got a motion.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Those carried. Consideration of bylaws. Acting Mayor is Councillor Johnstone. Councillor Johnstone.
That zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2006 number 400.407 RA 180 to rezone part of property from single family residential zone RS1 to residential duplex zone RM1 in order to construct 3 duplexes at 5640 Hammond Bay Road be adopted.
It's been moved and seconded, all those in favor? Opposed? Go ahead.
That zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2009 number 400.469 RA216 to rezone 446 Milton Street from Old City Low Density Residential Fourplex Zone RM9 to Old City Medium Density Multiple Family Residential Zone RM10 to facilitate the construction of a multi-family development be adopted.
I got a motion.
Yeah, and you moved that, and Councillor McNabb seconded. No discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Move that official community plan bylaw amendment bylaw 2010 number 6500.011 general text and map amendments to maintain the effectiveness and accuracy of the bylaw pass second reading as amended.
Second. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Move that Economic Development Commission Amendment Bylaw 2010 number 7098.01 to designate the provincial representative as a non-voting member and to add an additional at-large representative to a total of 4 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Move that Pesticide Use Bylaw 2010 number 7102 to restrict the use of cosmetic pesticides for residential lawn and garden use using authorization under the Community Charter BC registration 1442004 21BI and 22 be adopted.
Well read. It's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? So Councillor Unger and Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes. Introduction of bylaws.
Yes, move that Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2010 number 7097.01 to amend Schedule A of the 2010 to 2014 Financial Plan pass first reading.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of council in favor. Are you? Okay. The motion passes.
Move the Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2010 number 7097.01 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry opposes. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes.
That Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2010 number 7097.01 pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? I see Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes.
That Tax Rates Bylaw 2010 number 7103 to fix tax rates upon real property in the City of Nanaimo and to provide for the payment of taxes for the year 2010 pass first reading.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes.
That tax rates bylaw 2010 number 7103 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry opposes. The balance of council in favor. It passes.
That tax rates bylaw 2010 number 7103 pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry opposes. Balance of council in favor. It passes. Introduction of development bylaws. Moving down into correspondence.
Receipt of the correspondence.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. No business arising out of it. Moving down into item 19, other business, and we'll call on Councillor Unger to give a verbal report on the downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Area.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Downtown Nanaimo Business Association has been reconstituted as a membership organization instead of a partnership, and during the previous week an election was held for new directors to the organization, and a total of 175 votes were cast, and those elected for a 2-year term are Kevin Shaw, Louise Kello, Bill Carter, and Thomas Robershaw. For 1-year term, Sherry Molchan, Malcolm Johnson, Bonnie Butler, and that's for BIA, or Business Improvement Area 1. For Business Improvement Area 2, for a 2-year term, George Ewing, and for a 1-year term, Julie Romanishin. The general meeting of the association will be held tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. Anybody is welcome. It'll be held at the museum in the conference center building, again at 4:30, and an executive will be elected tomorrow at that time. That's my report.
Okay. Councillor Beswick, did you have a question?
No question.
Okay, but you had to raise something yourself?
Just earlier today and in recent weeks, we've received considerable information about our smoking bylaw and within the city of Nanaimo, and I would just like to ask staff, if I need a motion to do this, just direct staff to bring back a report on expanding the city of Nanaimo smoke-free zone to include all city parks, beaches, and facilities.
Second motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
There's some discussion.
So this is city-owned property only.
Correct.
That's what he said.
That's what he said, yeah. Okay. Opposed? It carries. Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Thank you very much. And now, Councillor Kipp, did you have something that you wanted to... You're okay on that one too? Okay, so on that happy note, we go into question period now. Agenda items only.